it's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your Energy and Ascension forecast for Sunday, February 19th to Saturday, February 25th. So last week was a little bit of a whirlwind. Of course, a lot of that got triggered by the last quarter moon in Scorpio. Of course, we talked about that last week, about how it was definitely wrapping up the lunar cycle that we've been in since the new moon in Aquarius. But in the bigger, broader picture of things, we're kind of piecing together the life lessons that collectively we have been learning since the true nodes of the moon moved into this Taurus and Scorpio axis. And of course, this is all about death and rebirth, about give and take, about collapsing what is no longer kind of supporting our reality, our dreams, and creating space for new elements to be born. Now, that Scorpio last quarter moon definitely put us in the shadow realm of our thoughts, of our feelings, of our experiences, because we had to have that little bit of funk to pressurize us in seeing where the greater, grander picture is pushing us to go. Of course, many of us holding on to the old with just the death grip of dear life, not recognizing that the prayers that we're putting out into the universe for new realities, for new relationships, new routines, new circumstances, we're preventing that by holding on to the old. Many people think that they should hold on to the old until the new knocks on their door and they can willingly invite it in, not recognizing that it doesn't work that way. We have to create the space, let go, especially on the faith, on the belief that when we let go, when we create the space, that there will be something better that shows up to be built in its place. That last quarter moon in Scorpio definitely put us in the feels and kind of created a little bit of a trigger and activation in the collective for a little bit of a shit show to take place. Of course, we're wrapping up the last week in Aquarius energy. That's why it has felt a little bit crazy, a little bit chaotic, with multiple storylines falling apart while new narratives are emerging. This Aquarian energy, of course, trying to show us the bigger, broader picture, but collectively speaking, creating some situations in order to trigger and activate the rebellious nature that this Aquarian energy brings us in order for us to fight back, for us to basically boss up, take our power and control back, and do what we got to do. And of course, as humans, we don't do those things that we should be doing until our back is against a wall, until we are absolutely just exhausted from the pain, from the trauma, from the suffering. And we need that little bit of a shake up, a wake up, in order for us to actually get ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and fight for what it is that we believe in and what it is that we can all agree needs to happen in this world in order to eliminate the darkness and to illuminate where it is that we need to build new earth. Now, last week we also had Valentine's Day, which, may not seem like a big deal, but if you are a Patreon subscriber, you would know the real truth behind Valentine's Day. We went into depth of the history of Valentine's Day and what it really was. And of course, when we have these particular events pop off, there is residual energy from, years and ancestors before us that really tapped into a different power, a different energy of celebrating these particular days in the very distorted calendar that we're living among right now. But that had a whole hell of a lot of, I'm going to say, contribution to the very wild energies that popped off over this past week. And what is very interesting to me is that people are already claiming that they can't take anymore, that they're at their breaking point, that they feel like they're drowning. And guess what? The story is just beginning, guys. We haven't even jumped into Pisces season yet. So you better grab a pool noodle, put your floaties on, because we're about to be flown into the middle of the oceans where we get to navigate all states of this very interesting, choppy, dangerous, beautiful, peaceful, calm sea. So that kind of leads us into what we got going on this week. We are about to jump into Pisces season, kicking off here on the 18th. We are in the final hours, the final degrees of this Aquarian energy. Also, why we're feeling an intensity, why we're feeling a little bit chaotic, this rapid firing energy within our physical bodies, why there are some pretty extreme storylines and narratives taking place in our external realm right now. And diving into Pisces season, of course, go ahead, listen to the astro forecast that I put out there, is definitely going to be a dramatic shift. Pisces energy is the last sign of the zodiac. Yes, it can be light and fluffy. It can be romantic and creative and dreamy and very imaginative. Yes, it can be spiritual. Yes, it can be renewal and refreshing in this spiritual realm. However, we don't usually get there until we go through the shadow elements of it, which means that we're really going to have to let go, surrender to a lot of the things that we feel helpless and not in control of. We are going to have to face where it is that we've been avoidant, trying to escape our physical realities, to live in a land of delusionment. We are going to have to really look our unconscious selves in the face and unearth a lot of the primary root causes for us to feel the way that we're feeling, thinking the way that we're thinking. Pisces energy is not fun. Essentially, we have to get tossed around in the middle of the emotional and intuitive sea in order for us to be broken down, to get real and raw and vulnerable with ourselves. And just as we feel like we can't take any more, like we're exhausted, like we can't continue to kick our feet and keep our head above water, is the minute that the sea spits us out onto dry land. And when we are reborn again, renewed again, rejuvenated again, under the Aries energy, when the new astrological calendar kicks off with the spring equinox. That, of course, does not take place until the end of March. So we have a little bit of swimming to go. This week, we also have the new moon in Pisces. We're almost into that new moon window as of right now, as I come to you speaking with you. Friday evening. We are almost there. We will definitely be in that new moon window here when the sun moves into Pisces energy on the 18th, because it happens later in the day. The new moon in Pisces taking place on the 20th is not as magical as the new moon in Pisces usually are. We can definitely blame Saturn for that. Saturn, of course, wrapping up his particular 3-year cycle in Aquarius energy. He is about to jump into Pisces energy in March. Again, February is the calm before the storm. Okay, so when people are like, wow, February has been just a crazy month, you ain't seen nothing yet. This is the calm before the storm, people. March is the month to look out for. And, you know, Saturn making big moves in March, moving into that Pisces energy. We are going to rant about that in a little bit here, because I feel like people are missing the point with Mr. Saturn here. But the new moon in Pisces kind of being influenced by Saturn, there's already this weight, this heaviness, this semi-depression, this semi-fear, the semi-insecurities and doubts, and all of these not so nice narratives, not so nice feelings kicking up under this new moon in Pisces. So yes, the goal is going to be to visualize a new vision, a new dream, a new project, a new goal, new outlook, new intentions on what it is that we actually want to create for ourselves. But it is going to be quite a task, quite a chore to do so, because the vibrations and the frequencies are going to be very low. And I would be surprised. And of course, we see this. They know what they're doing. When I say they, I mean the dark force energies out in the world. They know when to create scripted events out in the world in order to invoke fear and doubts and insecurities. And they do so around very potent astrology days. So the days that we are meant to make huge leaps forward in manifesting and visualizing the new reality, the new earth that we're trying to bring to life here. They also create a shitstorm of events in order to keep our vibrations low, to prevent us from reaching the highest vibration of the potential of the energy possible, and therefore it's going to be a struggle for us. Even more than that, just minutes after the new moon in Pisces takes place, Venus is going to be moving into Aries, which essentially means that she's going to be at her critical crisis degree in Pisces, endings, closures, surrendering, being broken down, in order for her to start fresh in Aries energy. I talk about this often. Anytime a planet is moving into Aries energy, it's a brand new cycle. It's a brand new system. It's a brand new lesson. And in order for brand new chapters to begin, what has to take place? Endings. What has to happen in order for a breakthrough to take place? A breakdown. What do we get in Pisces energy? Endings, closures, breakdowns. To prepare us, to purify us, to cleanse us for the new cycle that we're moving into when the new spark, the new fire gets reignited. And that is Aries energy. So Venus is going to be at the end of her rope under the new moon in Pisces peak energy. And then she goes ahead and she jumps into Aries energy. That's going to bring a whole different vibe to what this Pisces season is going to be. And of course, this week is the last full week of February that brought us the beautiful lesson in both 2 and 3, partnerships, balance, peace, harmony, versus new ideas, new information, new perspectives. And we've definitely had a lot of new situations develop that are creating a shitstorm of energy, making it very hard to find peace, making it very hard to find balance, making it very hard to process the new details, the new perspective, the new understanding that comes with the development of a new narrative. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So, to summarize, this next week is going to be highly emotional. We are all going to be super hypersensitive when we move into this Pisces energy. It is going to feel very heavy, very weighted. It is going to feel like you want to run away, like you want to escape, like you're exhausted, like you're drowning. And of course, Pisces energy being water energy, being the greatness, the vastness of water that you could possibly get. That's why I relate it to the sea. The sea comes in all different forms. It is the most beautiful, peaceful place that you can find yourself in. It's also the most terrifying. And in Pisces energy, we have to experience both sides. That's why Pisces energy, represented by 2 little fishes. Those 2 little fishes, that white fish, that black fish, they come together and make the yin-yang sign. Because duality, polarity, is what this Earth School is built off of. That is the matrix that governs over the laws, the rules of what can take place here in this physical realm. And the Pisces energy, you got one fish going one way, you got the other fish going the other way, and they're constantly at each other, never swimming in the same direction. Very much the dark fish, the shadow realm, the unconscious collective, the light fish, of course, information, positivity, our awareness. And again, one is going in one way, the other one is going in the other. This makes us feel very split, very torn. We don't know what to do, what to feel, what to think, what to believe. That confusion, that vagueness, that fog is necessary. Again, contributing to the breakdown before we get to the breakthrough. So before I jump into ranting and talking about the Ascension symptoms for this week, I just want to cross a couple of things off my list. First of all, I just want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting. Thank you for those of you that have jumped over and support me on Patreon. Thank you to those of you that send me little monetary donations through the super thanks, through the fan thanks. I don't really understand all these technologies, but I'm glad other people do. And I'm super grateful that you share your hard-earned dollars with me. Thank you so much. The absolute support and love and encouragement that I get from this community is overwhelming and a constant reminder why I got to pick myself up every day and continue to deliver the information that channels through me. So I want to thank you so much for that. Of course, we have a new moon coming at us here in Pisces energy. And this would be a great time. I don't like to plug too many things that I got going on, but let me just remind you about the moon guides. Now, a couple of things come up over the last week, and I thought to myself, maybe I should be a little bit more detailed when I talk about the moon guides. When you go on my website, you have 2 options. You can go and download the moon guide as a one-off, and of course, you'll get that in your email. You can download it. You can have a great time going through the highs and the lows of the moon guide. Or you can subscribe for cheaper price, and the subscription gives you access to the dashboard. What do I mean by the dashboard? So I had somebody ask me the other day, well, where do I find the lunar calendar? How do I know what we're facing in the month? When do I know that the moon is where? What that means for me? First of all, in the daily energy forecast that I put out every single day, you can tell where the moon is at by looking at the top right-hand corner. It'll tell you what sign, what energy the moon is at. We talk in these daily forecasts what stage, what phase of the lunar calendar we're in. But if you're a Moon Guide subscriber, there's a whole dashboard there for you. It will tell you the minute that you log in to your dashboard what phase of manifesting we're in, what energy the moon is in, what influence that has on us, the whole lunar cycle for the month, how it is that that's going to affect us, and the chapter that we're in. And of course, you can download your Moon Guide. So for those of you wondering like where you can find all this information, I put all of this information out there, both in my free content and of course my subscription content as well. So I would really encourage you that if you are either A, new to astrology, or B, on your personal healing journey, start with the moon. That's your emotions. That's your unconscious self. People ask me all the time, how do you start shadow work? Start with the moon. That is essentially shadow work in its purest form. And so everything is there for you. I just felt the need to kind of put that out there because this, moon guide in Pisces, this is the last new moon guide for this lunar calendar. We are moving into a brand new astrological calendar when Aries season kicks off. And my goodness, we're all going to be just so much happier in Aries season, even though we have a shitstorm of spiritual life lessons coming at us. Again, if you're wondering when I drop these little tidbits of information, what it is that I'm actually talking about, you can figure that out by listening to the 2023 energy forecast, where I break down every single month of this year and the astrological significance of each month and what this means for us and what it's preparing us for. All the information is out there. So please just dive into it with an open heart, with an open mind, get prepared on what 2023 has in store. The last thank you that I want to kind of put out there is for those of you, I made the mistake last week. I was a little bit cryptic, thinking that when I was talking about the Ascension forecast about the tailbone in our blood, I was kind of a little bit cryptic to say, those who are in the know what I'm talking about, and those who aren't in the know, that you don't need to know. Well, that created a lot of interest. And so I did go ahead and do a full podcast over on my Patreon, going into the blood types, going into what Rh negative was all about. Please, again, do not jump into the comments and disclose your blood type. That is the last thing that I want you to do. Keep that shit private. But it was very interesting to see how many of y'all actually jumped over to Patreon just for that podcast. And so thank you so much for that. And then, of course, we followed that up with a little bit of a history lesson on what Valentine's Day was. And I super appreciate all the feedback for that. It's definitely interesting to see what people are interested in. And I'm, often sitting here trying to think of what should I talk about, or what should I post about? What should I rant about? And I think that when I come up with, trying to think of topics and themes, I think to myself, well, no, nobody needs to talk about that. Nobody needs to know that. I'm sure they know all about that. And then I post something that to me is just general information, because I don't really, I learned it a long time ago. I didn't really know that it was not in the know. And then to get the feedback from everyone that this is the kind of information that they're looking for, and this is the interesting topics and themes that they want to dive into, it really kind of is a game changer for me, because what I think is a simple topic and something that nobody wants to talk about or nobody wants to learn about, there's obviously a huge interest in. So I think it's a very interesting dynamic. So for those of you that are a part of my Patreon, feel free to shoot me a message and DM me over there on Patreon with some of the topics and themes that, you would be interested in learning about. Because to me, I'm just sitting here with a bunch of information that I think everybody tends to already know. So let me know what it is that you want to know. Anywho, I am going to jump into the Ascension symptoms, but I feel like this is a rant that I need to go into in order to explain some of the Ascension symptoms. And I just want to give a general reminder to people out there why we're going through certain circumstances in the world right now. So I thought it would be best to talk about Saturn. Saturn, as you know, is the Lord of Karma and essentially, quote unquote, Satan of our world. He is the God of our world. He did create the matrix. He is Father Time. He has created the restrictions of our earth realm. He is, I always say Saturn is like the military grandfather, right? He likes to give us tough love. Now, Saturn, and again, I'm just keeping in the astrological realm of knowledge here because Saturn is known by very, very interesting names, depending on the background of culture, belief, religion, so on and so forth. Just a reminder, guys, there are literally a handful of quote unquote gods or deities or names that get thrown around as powerful placements, both good and evil. They're all the same people. Okay, so don't get caught up in the names. They're literally the same kind of energies, the same kind of archetypes that go by different names. So let's just start there. I'm talking about Saturn as the planet that represents the god, if you will, Kronos, who is Father Time and who goes by again, a multitude of names. Don't get caught up on the names. Anywho, Saturn is essentially the ruler of this earth plane, of this earth matrix. And he gets a bad rap because everybody here thinks that, division, we're in a polarized, dualistic state of good and bad. The minute that you can get past the dualistic state of naming something good or bad and you just live in the general gray area where good and bad come together and it's not good or bad, it just is, that is when you truly reach a state of enlightenment and awareness that frees you from the constructs and restrictions of what this earthly matrix was built off of. Nothing is good. Nothing is bad. Okay, that's just a feeling that a human has and labels that feeling according to their thoughts, their perspectives, their knowledge, their opinion. Nothing is good. Nothing is bad. And I may have to go on a rant about this over on my Patreon because it kind of mystifies me how people don't get it. Like people are so quick to name something bad and make that the evilness or the adversary in this world, not realizing that the good only exists because the bad exists. And the minute that you can get in the mind frame to stop identifying things as good or bad is the minute that you start living in a state of oneness. And that is what we're all here to accomplish. The concepts of good and bad or good and evil or light and dark, that is merely just a human concept. Outside of this earth matrix, those things don't exist. This is just the experimentation matrix restrictions and laws for this particular earth plane. We are in a simulation. This is a game. If you have watched Hunger Games, you would know that there is a group of people that are in this command center that operate the game, that decide how they can throw obstacles and challenges and crises at the contestants in the game in order to see whether or not they are going to live or whether they are going to die. We have been told time and time again through movies, through books, through media, what kind of earth plane we live in. But so many people just look at it as entertainment and they don't understand that, in the Hunger Games, they could press a button, they could alter weather. That's the same as here, okay? In the Hunger Games, they could press a button and unleash these quote unquote bad things to go out and kill the contestants. That's the same thing as here. We are essentially living in a altered simulation, a video game, if you will, and there is a group of people that live in the command center and that press buttons to unleash certain obstacles and challenges on humanity. That is just plain and simple. Saturn, the reason why I want to talk about Saturn, I feel like I need to remind you that back in 2020, January 12th to be specific of 2020, we had the great conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter in Capricorn energy. Capricorn energy is not only an earth energy, it's ruled over by Saturn. Saturn was in his place of power there, very connected to power, to systems, to corporations, to big systems, to, basically the damage and destruction that we're watching right now with banking systems, healthcare, the elites, all this politic crap. The damage and destruction got kind of triggered between the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction. It was not a surprise. Any astrologer that had half a brain knew that there was going to be a trigger point activation in order for the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, along with a lot of other planets, because there was a stellium in Capricorn at that time, was going to essentially be the domino that falls first, that led to the damage and destruction as we knew it, the collapse of our life, of society as we knew it. And of course, Saturn at that point, I think it took place at like 22 degrees, which is a master number anyway. So we knew it was divinely scripted in order to fall apart. It only took a couple of months, March, before, we seen what that conjunction actually meant. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, it was the pandemic, right? That's when we entered into the pandemic. So Saturn at that particular point had shifted into the Aquarian energy. And of course, Saturn is discipline and structure and restriction and tough love. And in Aquarian energy, it was the collective and boundaries and restrictions on, being able to move, basically. And so since 2020, we have seen all of these particular aspects kind of move around. And we are finishing up the last degrees that Saturn is in Aquarius energy. And that's why over this past week and a half, you have seen just absolute shit show narratives. I'm going to pop off a couple to you. Hopefully this doesn't get me banned. I know I've taken a hit over this last month. I have the lowest numbers that I've ever had on my YouTube channel, which is kind of concerning. But again, I thank you so much for jumping over to Patreon and supporting me over there to make up for it. Basically, over the last couple of weeks, we have seen, I'm just gonna be cryptic, derailments with highly volatile chemicals, okay? We have seen a quote unquote act of God, a lightning strike, with that religious figure in Brazil. We have seen earthquakes. We have seen, I'm going to say, cornerstone catastrophic events take place all around the world. Now, the reason why I'm setting it up this way is not only because of Saturn. Saturn, when he is ending a chapter, keep in mind, Saturn will never ever be able to replicate or repeat these particular life lessons for his existence. It will be another 30 years alone before he's even in Aquarian energy. But we know that when Saturn ends an energy and jumps into a new one, the world shifts, the narrative shifts. So we've seen when Saturn moved into Aquarius, the restrictions on the collective, on humanity, the boundaries that were put in place, the structures and systems that were enforcing basic isolation and non-togetherness, because Aquarian energy wants to come together. And from that particular narrative, we've seen all of these groups kind of branch off into like-minded communities. Well, Saturn is about to wrap up his time in Aquarius energy. And unfortunately for us, we did not reach the level of rebellion that we should have reached at the beginning of Saturn moving into Aquarius. And here we are, all this time later, we have all of these catastrophic events that are scripted. I'll talk about that in a second, in order to push us into the level of rebellion that we should have been in like 2.5 years ago. Okay. Let me just say this. In my 2023 energy forecast, I talked a little bit about what Saturn and Pisces is going to be for us. I talk about it very briefly. I try to keep it very light, very fluffy, very vague, because I am not a fearmonger, but there is going to be a lot of death, and death by water. Piece it together. What happened with the derailments, the water system, the smoke in the air, acid rain, okay? Water being contaminated. Water is not safe. We are also going to want to keep our eyes on the water as far as this little egocentric 3D military operation unfolds. We want to watch the water there. We also want to watch the water because these man-made earthquakes will eventually lead us into the rising of the waters. Hopefully we can avoid a tsunami. However, there will be great death coming from flooding, coming from water-related incidences. So this leads me into the other avenue of what's going on right now. So I struggle because a lot of people are still very misinformed when it comes to the Bible. And some of the people that quote the Bible a little bit too much have never read the Bible. They don't understand the Bible, and they take the Bible as a literal script, a literal situation, and not the scripted events that it is. May I remind you, scripture, okay? Scripture. What's in the word scripture? Script. What does it mean to script something? It means to pre-plan, pre-write, have pre-meditated motivation. So I have all these people saying, oh my goodness, you know, that lightning strike with the religious figure in Brazil, like that was a sign from God. No, that was a man using an energy weapon in order to create what you would think is a godlike natural event in order for the quote unquote believers to be hopped up and jacked up that we're getting signs of the end times. Okay, so, and then you get all this life like, oh, okay, what's happening in Turkey and Syria? Okay, well, if you don't understand that that was a man-made weather event, the earthquake that I'm speaking of, and one would say, well, how would you know? Okay, so why did all the countries around the world give warnings to their higher ups, to their very important political people to get the F out of Turkey before it happened, just 24 hours before, okay? So this is another scripted event. How come nobody's talking about the fact that BlackRock actually owns the 3 different rail companies that actually got derailed, that put all these chemicals in the water system and now in the air? How come nobody wants to talk about that? Let me be very clear to you. The minute that people start screaming about the fact that there are situations going on in the world that replicate or resemble what revelations and what the end times are kind of being, formulated about in the Bible. What I don't understand is how people can actually believe that the Bible is real. There is more evidence out there to suggest that it has been so manipulated over the years that it's not even ringing very true. There are multiple books, original books of the Bible that have been left out. Basically, it is a book of lies and tales and allegory written by the evildoers in order to conform you to believe in a God and worship in a God that is actually the God of this earth, which just happens to be Satan himself. So it would make sense, it makes sense in my mind, that if the evildoers wrote this book, why wouldn't they be taking every action to create situations, circumstances, and scenarios in our earthly realm that could be connected to what is spoken about in the book of lies and get everybody all wrapped up that this is the end of times, this is the end of times. This isn't prophecy. This is them playing out the plan that they wrote in the book. They wrote the lies down in the book, and now they are bringing the lies to life, and people are actually believing that this is biblical. It's not. It's scripted. It's scripture. So it's very frightening to me to think that the ones that are supposed to be aligned with the higher power are still being disillusioned. It's really concerning that people are not using discernment as much as they should. Yes, these are horrible people. Yes, they're doing horrible things. Yes, they are mimicking situations and scenarios that can be very connected to end of times situations, but they're also the writer, the author of the Book of Lies. If you actually had the original Bible, and the Bible even in its most original state is just merely a copy and an impersonation of information and knowledge that preceded the Bible. So let's just get that clear. They ripped off other religions. They ripped off other wisdom and knowledge and put it in a book in order to create fear and conformity. But let's just say, for example, that the Bible, even in its most original state, was actually real. There could be a lot of information in there that would be helpful for us at these particular point in times to understand what's going on. But again, it has been edited out and manipulated to such an extent that people actually still believe that what they are reading, what they're believing in is coming from the highest power, the highest creator, when it's not. And that's why you get all these arguments about, oh, there's only one God. No, there's multiple gods. No, if you believe in multiple gods, you're a Satanist. People don't even understand what Satanism is. They're just too quick to identify good and bad. And again, that gets back to my original rant about being able to use your highest self to understand that you have to remove yourself from the divide. There is no good. There is no evil. There just is. Right? And when you can accept the fact that there just is, and that the good needs the bad in order to exist, and the bad needs the good in order to exist, and that you can't eliminate one or the other, or else this particular little petri dish experiment is going to come to an end, that is when we can start moving forward and unifying in New Earth. So the damage, the destruction, the chaos that we're currently seeing, yes, it's real to us in this physical realm. It's real, but we also live in a simulation. So to a certain extent, it is a real narrative taking place in the game that, of course, is not real once you exit the game. And it is a real instance that could create a lot of fear in the population because it is very scary, but it's also scripted. It's also planned. There are people that have made the executive decision to make these particular things happen. And they make them happen for a lot of reasons, but to get the people, the believers, all fired up, thinking that this is end times. Don't even get me started on the balloons and the UFOs and the alien invasion. If you don't understand Project Bluebeam by now, I don't know what to say to you. This is all a buildup. This is all a test. And when Saturn moves into Pisces, yes, there will be a lot of death. There will be a lot of endings. There will be a finality to the damage and destruction, because when Saturn moves into Aries energy, 2025, 2026, that is when we build New Earth. That is the new world. That is when we kind of create something beautiful out of the damage and destruction that is currently taking place. And the Saturn in Pisces lesson that is coming at us is to be okay with ourselves, to make peace within ourselves, to find our own spiritual strength, and to be so strong in ourselves, within us, that we don't let this outside bullshit knock us off of our game, okay? But we have to do better using our discernment. We have to listen to our heart space. I don't know how many people are out there just super confused right now, feeling like you don't know what to believe, what is real, what is not. There's a lot, because we're in a state of psychosis. And the spiritual psychosis is going to be addressed when Saturn moves into Pisces as well. We're going to weed away the fakers. We're going to weed away the delusionment. We're going to weed away the lies, the betrayal. Keep in mind, Pisces energy is the unconscious collective. So life isn't getting worse. Life isn't getting bad. Life has always been like this, but our eyes are open to it now, because we can't build New Earth with a bunch of skeletons in humanity's closet, so to speak. And so the closets got opened with the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction in 2020. And we've been cleaning out those closets ever since. And for a lot of people who weren't kind of, hip and keen to the whole government motive and the whole, matrix construct, it's been a very jarring time to watch all these skeletons just constantly fall out of the closet, and to recognize how big the pile of skeletons is actually getting by cleaning out the closet. And this particular energy that we're in, as we near the very ending degrees, the crisis degrees of this Aquarian energy that Saturn is about to wrap up before he moves on and doesn't look back for the next 30 years, it has to be a big deal. This is the last hurrah, the last shake up, the last wake up, the last look in the closet to see if we left anything in the deep, dark corners. This is a time for us to get our flashlights to illuminate these closets, to make sure that we're not leaving any remnants in those closets. And this Pisces energy that Saturn is going to move into is going to be tough. It's going to be hard. We're wrapping up a 30-year cycle. Okay, so, if you're around the age of 28 to 30 and you have Saturn in Pisces in your birth chart, you're about to have your Saturn return. And Saturn returns aren't fun. And for us as a collective, we're having essentially a Saturn return because we need to go through this ending, this closure, this purging, this purification stage in Pisces from now until 2025, in order for us to be cleansed, purified of the darkness, of the damage, of the destruction, in order for us to be refined so that we can define what it is that we're going to build when the lay of the land offers us the space to do it. How do we create the space? There needs to be a death. How do we create that death? We move into Pisces energy. We wash it all away. So I just feel the need. I know that there was a kind of a random rant there, but I just feel the need to talk about it because, to me, I don't understand why people don't understand why things are tough right now. I don't understand why people don't understand why the narrative is changing. I don't understand why people don't understand that we're in the thick of it and that we're going to continue to be in the thick of it for some years to come. I have a hard time understanding why other people don't understand. So it leads me to go on these rants, and I know sometimes I'm repetitive, and I apologize for that. In no way am I trying to speak down or be condescending, and I'm saying that for a particular person who decided to run their mouth about me being condescending. I'm not condescending at all. I'm repeating it with an element of frustration because I feel the pain and the struggle of humanity. As a light worker, that's what we do. As a transmuter, that's my job. And I get frustrated because I'm feeling like I'm not helping. I feel like I'm failing at doing my job. I feel like I want to reassure people and validate that, yes, we are in a shit show, but here's why. And here's what we need to do during this shit show in order for us to come out on the other end okay. So I'm hoping that by being repetitive, by taking the time to go on these little mini rants, it'll give you a little bit of perspective on why it is that, the world is the way that it is right now. And again, may I remind you that nothing about what is going on right now is natural in origin. It is all planned. It is all scripted. There are higher ups that are making these calls to create this damage, to create this chaos, to impact the collective in this way. Why? Because when people are afraid, they're easier to control. Number one, when people are confused and afraid and don't know what to believe, they check out spiritually. Okay? That's what they want. This whole matrix has been constructed in order to divide us from our spirituality, from our faith. Everything in this world is meant to dumb our intuition down in order for us to just be this numbed out zombie-like creature that they are going to great lengths in order to create, because too many of us have awakened to a level where we actually have more power and control than they do. We just haven't come together as a collective to put all of our beautiful minds together and to rebel in a way that would restore the power to the people. Now, don't be sad about it. Pluto is about to move into Aquarius energy in March. Pluto is the great transformer. We are moving into the age of Aquarius. Aquarian energy is the conscious collective. But we have to understand what's been bumping around in the night, what floats around in the surface of our conscious awareness. We have to bring that to the light. We have to bring it into an awareness in order to solve it. And you best believe that we are going to see major changes, major transformations with Pluto, the great transformer himself that rules over death and rebirth in Aquarian energy. Now, he is going to be there for 20 years, so it's not going to happen overnight. We have to think about the long game. We also have to consider the fact that Saturn is closing out a chapter. So you best believe 2025, 2026 is going to be a very powerful time for newness. There's going to be a clean slate provided for us to build upon. But again, how do you get a clean slate? You clear out the junk. You take out the trash. You allow things to end. You allow things to die. You allow things to collapse. You watch the damage and destruction fall apart around you. And when you're gifted with the green light, go ahead, you can start cleaning up that debris and putting back what pieces you can put back together. And in most cases, there's not going to be much to work with. So we will be starting fresh in a lot of different ways. But that is what we're here to do. We are here to create new earth. We're just in the point of the calendar, if you will, where we're cleaning up the old before we can go ahead and start building the new. So hopefully that was helpful. Now, I've been ranting now for 45 minutes, so I feel like we should probably jump into some of the Ascension symptoms. I want to talk about something that was kind of funny. It wasn't funny in a funny way, it was funny in a painful way, but funny nonetheless. Last week I talked about hand issues. I said, you know what? Watch out for your hands. Watch out for jamming your hands in a door, for cuts on your hands, for broken nails, for, just trauma happening to your hands. And a lot of that reminder was because, our palm chakras are still coming online. Well, not even a half hour after I recorded that particular Ascension forecast, I was literally out with my dogs doing nothing. I went to grab one of my dogs by the collar because we were coming in, and he's a puppy. He's a 100-pound puppy. So you kind of have to give him a little bit of guidance. So I grabbed his collar just as I would, and I ripped the tendons in my very first finger. And man, was it ever painful. And I was shocked and I was surprised, and I'm still gimped up and I'm having a hard time. But what I thought was funny about that is I had just given the warning and then it happened to me. And I laughed, not in the ha-ha funny laugh, but in the existential dread ha-ha funny laugh. I watched it swelled up. I watched me not be able to move my hand. And, it was pretty easy for me to understand what the lesson was because, of course, I just identified the finger. Well, first I identified the side of the body that it was on. Then I identified the finger that I hurt. And then you do a little bit of digging, you understand what rules over that particular finger and what energy gets stored in that finger. And suddenly you can understand why it is that injury happened, because you needed that message brought to your awareness. And I definitely did. And as I spoke about last week, I am approaching my death anniversary taking place here on the 18th. So of course, when you take a look at that whole system and cycle, I am going through a little bit of a death phase, and we're talking about the aches and pains of old injuries coming back up because this is a part of Pisces season as well. And for me, going through the cycle that I'm currently going through, of course, I would have this injury bring this illumination of the emotional cycle that I've been avoiding to my awareness because I'm going through a death, a purge, a cleansing, a purification. Because I am about to be reborn again here on the 18th, and I'm going to jump into a brand new emotional cycle. But I needed that message in order to understand what I had to focus on, what I had to work on before I jumped into that brand new life lesson. So I thought that was kind of funny. We are still going to have some attention brought to our hands. I don't know necessarily that it's going to be as dramatic as like ripping the ligaments in your hand. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're not cutting yourself and banging yourself up and, jamming your hand indoors this week. But I think that we're also going to have a lot of pruning. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's going to look like you've been in water forever and you haven't been. And it's going to be a really weird sensation because being able to be all pruned up at the same time of feeling like your hands are swollen, that's going to be an interesting type of sensation. We get this because we are moving into Pisces season. Pisces season is water. We do get waterlogged. We will feel the bloat in our physical bodies, in our face, in our hands, in our bellies, of course. And it is going to feel like we are absolutely exhausted from treading water. That's just what Pisces season brings. I also want to talk about the awareness of how many bruises, mystery bruises, we're accumulating on our physical bodies as of late. This is, again, just another illumination of where some energy blockages are alive and well in our physical form. With that, the old aches, the old pains are likely going to, I'm not going to say be as dramatic as they might have been over this past week, but we're definitely going to feel a little bit tired, a little bit exhausted, a little bit beat up, if you will. And I know it's not such the greatest thing to think about, feeling this exhausted, feeling this end of the rope, and still having to go through another month of this, but we are kind of getting out of the chaos and craziness of the mental plane and kind of doing a deep dive in our spiritual and emotional and intuitive bodies. So we'll have that change as well. But I think that because of the hypersensitivity, because of the disposition that many of us are already in, the emotions are just going to be all over the place. If depression sits in, sadness, grief sits in, just let it wash over you. Again, water energy cleanses us, purifies us, removes the heaviness, the weight from us, but we got to sit in it. We got to feel it in order to heal it. And we're definitely going to be feeling lots of it, especially within the first 4 days of this week, seeing as we're moving into Pisces season. And then we just get absolutely hammered by that new moon in Pisces. Again, download your moon guide. Anywho, we're going to see a shift in the feminine divine energies, especially after Venus moves into this Aries energy shortly after the new moon pops off and we dive into a brand new emotional cycle with her. Now, this is, I call it the dark feminine energy, because sometimes we really need, as the feminine energy rises within us. Yes, we want to go with the flow. Yes, we want to be intuitive. Yes, we want to be emotional. Yes, we want to be receptive. But in this Aries energy, that is masculine energy, because it's ruled over by Mars. Mars essentially rules over Aries energy, and Venus, being the feminine divine energy, setting up shop in the masculine house of energy and Aries energy, it is going to bring the aggression out. We're going to be more straightforward in identifying what needs to stay, what needs to go. We're going to be more straightforward in identifying what it is that we're tired of, what it is we're no longer willing to tolerate, what it is that we desire, what it is that we're going to go after. This, I call it dark feminine energy, because sometimes anger is the best force that we need in order to make a change. The dark feminine energy will be rising. And I don't just mean for females, because we all have feminine and masculine energies within us. We're all going to get triggered and activated when Venus goes ahead and dives into that Aries energy. So the aggression is going to push us into new passions, new desires. What do we want for our relationships? What do we want for our money matters? We have to be a little bit more resourceful as we're watching the world fall apart. You should be asking yourself, where can I become more self-reliant? Where can I, top up my resources so that I don't have to be worried about, what everybody else is doing? You can just rely and depend upon yourself. This is going to put us in a state where we are willing to fight for our peace, willing to fight for our fairness, for justice, for what is right, for balance, for harmony. We will fight for it, right? And we need that. We need to get in the quote unquote aggressive mind space in order to fight for what is right. Again, this Aquarian energy really triggering and activating this rebellious attitude within us that we should have had a long time ago. It's finally here, better late than never, so let's do something with it. We will still continue to have a little bit of head pressure, but more in the, so sometimes it feels like we have to blow our nose and then nothing comes out. And sometimes we're sniffing a lot, but we're not even sniffing anything back because it doesn't feel like there's anything there. Now, you could have a series of just a running clear snot type of situation, but mostly it's just going to feel like congestion. Again, a lot of the ear ringing, the ear clicking, a lot of that is due to the head pressure that we are feeling. Again, Mercury being in Aquarius energy, the lower level and higher level intellects of our mental plane, they're in the zone, and this Aquarian energy just pushing the boundaries of what it is that we can actually perceive and understand and contemplate and actually make sense of. And a lot of this pressure is in the base of the neck, in the ears, like feeling like muffled and clicking and ringing in times. But a lot of it feels like we got to blow the snot out of our nose, but there's nothing there to blow out. And so we start sniffing it back. Let me just say, please pay special attention to your lymph system, okay? Do the lymph node massages. Get get dry brushing, get moving that body. We have a lot to detox, especially going into Pisces season. We have to make sure that our lymph system is cleaned out, cleared out, has a good channel for us to remove some of these toxic blockages that will be erupting in our physical body due to the energy changing. Itchiness. Yes, we've been dealing with itchiness. There's probably going to be a lot more itchiness taking place as we heal. Itchiness, of course, a true indicator of what it is that we're healing within us. Skin irritations. We talked about like almost like pimples or like bug bites that aren't really pimples or bug bites erupting. There's likely going to be a lot of, I'm going to say, inflammation, redness, itching, irritation. Be visible on our skin, as it is the largest organ of our body. But a lot of this is because we're immersing ourselves in water. So a lot of the times when we are in a saturation stage of water, it's trying to cool down the fire, the flames, the inflammation in our body. And so we can kind of expect to pay attention to where these particular itchiness or bites or pimples, however you want to kind of break it down, skin eruptions, pay attention to where it is that they are kind of asking for your attention on your physical body so that you can refocus your energy on that particular organ and do the emotional work in order to cleanse that particular organ out. Now, we're going into Pisces season, which means that we're about to get cold feet. I mean it. Pisces rules over feet, and being in the depths of the dark, cold ocean and sea, you best believe that we are going to be running on the cold side of things. Doesn't mean that we won't have bouts of temperature fluctuations where we're just, sweating to death and needing to take clothes off in order to breathe. But for the most part, we will be running on the cold side, and you will be feeling that temperature dysregulation in your feet. We get cold feet because we're about to jump into a new astrological calendar, a new chapter, a new life lesson, a new reality. And many of us, although very much praying for change, get cold feet when it comes down to actually making the moves, taking the steps that we have to make and we have to take in order to actually bring this new reality to life. I want you to pay attention for in your mouth, little cuts, little canker sores, little water blisters. I want you to pay attention for inflammation in the gums itself. Maybe you're having sore gums. Maybe the roof of your mouth is burning. It can manifest in different ways. But we definitely want to pay attention to our mouth, mostly because we become a little bit more introverted in this Pisces energy. We hold a lot in. Mercury, who rules over communication, who wants us to use our voice, is in Aquarius energy that has us emotionally detached in more of a situation where we're thinkers instead of actually speakers. So again, we're holding a lot of that energy in. That creates inflammation. That creates Ascension symptoms like canker sores and cuts and blisters and bit tongue and sore gums and all those lovely things. I want you to pay attention to your vision. We're going to get blurriness. We've been having blurriness, but it's going to get even worse because we're in water now. So think what it feels like to open your eyes underwater. You can vaguely make things out, but not really. And when you're underwater looking up at the sun and looking up at the sky, everything is distorted. We're not seeing things clearly. And because we're moving into Piscean energy and it's very psychic in nature, we're going to be reaching new levels of our psychic abilities, which is going to cause a distortion with our physical vision. And this is going to create more situations where there's sparkles, where there's floaters. I want you to pay attention to the eye crusties, the little sleep crusties that you're just not able to get rid of out of your eyes, no matter how much you rub them. It's going to feel a little bit like sandpaper, even though we're immersed in water. Sometimes being underwater, it stings your eyes, right? Just think about when you're in the shower or something and you get water in your eyes, it kind of burns a little bit. It's a little bit of an oxymoron that water, moisture, can actually create a drying, burning situation. But you know what? As humans, we're just a cluster F of wonder. Our dream state is about to get super, super terrifying. Pisces energy rules over dreams. Neptune, its ruler, is about dreams. And we have a lot to unpack. Again, the skeletons in the closet are piling up pretty quick. And many of us will be receiving some very cryptic and maybe premonitory or prophetic dreams of sorts that, of course, are going to be very cryptic in nature and probably not interpreted in the right way, creating more fear in the body, which is limiting the vibration and frequency that we're trying to tap into for enlightenment, for happiness, for positivity, for manifestation. Again, when we're in a very high, potent, magical time, the circumstances around us are low, are scary, are freaky, so that we don't tap into those high vibrations and frequencies. This would be a great time to start a dream diary, because you're going to be looking back on some of the dream content that's about to pop off in a couple of, I'm going to say weeks, but technically months. And you're just going to be mind blown that you had the answers to some of the situations that you're about to walk into this whole time. You just didn't realize it. So definitely start a dream diary. We talked about the inflammation. We talked about the burning. I want you to pay attention to the burning in your gut. So there is like this acid reflux, which is going to create a lot of gas, which is going to create a lot of bathroom changes, which is a great time to take a good look at your diet. Again, we are ending things. We are closing the door on things. Maybe the way that you've been putting and consuming certain content, certain food in your body, maybe that needs to change. Maybe that needs to end. Maybe that needs to die. You will become illuminated to problems in Pisces energy, extreme problems that you will just reach the breaking point with, and you will decide in that moment that you have to make a change. You have to do something different. And your innards are just going to be on fire. Therefore, that is going to put you in a situation where you're like, what can I change? What can I eat differently? What can I remove? What can I put an ending to? What needs to be switched up in my routines and in my diet and in the way that I consume information? All of this is going to be a true revelation, an aha moment, an epiphany as we move through Pisces season and as we move through this week with the new moon in Pisces, that is going to lead us to great change. I want you to pay attention to the electricity coursing through your body, the goosebumps that you get, the wave of temperature fluctuations that take over. And pay attention to whatever it is that you're thinking and feeling at that time, because that is a huge validation point that you're on the right track for something. And that physical validation that moves through your body in electricity, in goosebumps, in a wave of temperature change is an indicator that you're on the right track, but you have to be mindful about what it is that you were focused on at the particular time that your body had that reaction. Lastly, talked about this kind of briefly and kind of played into that whole blood RH negative rant that I went on over on my Patreon. We talked about the tailbone. We talked about the tailbone being very uncomfortable, very sore. So many of you reached out and kind of gave me the feedback that, yep, it happened out of the blue. Yep, it was difficult to sit. Yep, happened, woke me up out of my sleep. I could barely walk. You know, people having more cases of sciatica now than ever before. And this is because the tension is stored up in our root chakra, our survival instincts, if you will. And so what I will say is that I don't know that the tailbone is going to be the main feature, but I want you to pay attention to the tension that you're holding in your lower back, to what's being kind of brought to your attention in your hips, in your pelvic area. You need to pay attention to the root chakra. Why? Because there are circumstances being scripted and played out in the world right now in order to invoke fear. Fear is stored in the root chakra. It really puts us in a situation where we have to contemplate our instincts of survival. They are doing this to keep you grounded into this earth plane, into this matrix, into this game. I invite you to take the hint, take the cues from your physical body and rise above it, acting as the observer, seeing what is actually at play here and what it is that they're actually trying to distract you of, which is the true power that you hold within yourself. Your connection to the greater, grander creator, your connection to all of the energy that you're able to tap into and really help unfold all of these beautiful petals in the chakra system that you need to have awakened if you stand a chance in being able to go to the next level. So guys, I think that's all that I'm going to cover this week. Drop me a line in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling. Of course, I'm sending you nothing but love. I'm cheering us on. I understand the frustration. I understand the confusion. I get it. And you know what? I'm not free of it either, but I also have to continuously remind myself and therefore remind you guys of why we're going through what it is that we're going through, the greater, grander plan of it. We asked to be on earth to witness this shift in consciousness, and we are definitely doing so. So let's not give in to the scripted events. Let's just remind ourselves that, guess what? The only dark force that we have to really be worried about is what man is capable of. And we can shift that dark force energy by raising our vibration and frequency. And of course, having that overflow into the conscious collective of humanity. So you got to do your part. It all starts with you. Get your mind right, get your heart right, keep them in the most positive energies and vibrations as possible. Let's not pour into these scare tactics, these fear-mongering narratives. Let's just understand that this is a very interesting movie, albeit a very disgusting and distorted one, but interesting movie nonetheless, and very, very twisted video game that I'm sure many of us are just tired of at this point and can't wait to actually face the big boss at the end, to flip him over and to take our power back. So guys, let's do it. Let's keep as much positivity as possible. Let's pluck out the silver linings. Let's understand the games that are being played, and let's stay ahead of them. I hope you have a beautiful week, a beautiful new moon, and I'm sending you nothing but love.